Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman, and with me today is Scott Slone. More about him in a moment. And if you're joining us live, we would like to remind you we will keep your information anonymous, and we will only share your information if you manually type it in with your question or comment within our chat. If you would like to join us live on future podcasts, you can learn more about how to do so at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. And let me introduce you to my good friend, Scott Slone, who personally I've known for 7 years now. When I first started going into my hard recovery stuff, he was one I met online in Male Survivor in the forums there, and he became a good friend and ally and inspiration. And we'll talk more about that later. But here is his intro. Scott Slone is a survivor advocate and the founder of Mighty AK, AK meaning Alaska, a survivor-led movement working to prevent sexual abuse and domestic violence in Alaska. After breaking decades of silence about his own childhood abuse, Scott chose to turn lived experience into action, creating space for survivors while challenging the systems that allow harm to continue. Through storytelling, public education, and prevention-focused advocacy, his work asks hard questions about silence, accountability, and what it really takes to protect kids before harm happens, and why prevention begins earlier than we think. So with that, we'll start our episode like we do most episodes with 4 questions. Now it's time for 4 questions, that part of the podcast when we get to know our guest a bit better by asking a few questions. Let's go. So, Scott, what is your favorite food memory?
Well, first, Mike, I want to also just thank you for having me and in this space that you make for everyone, and not just me, but for others. So I really appreciate you having me here, and
Absolutely.
I'm really, really proud of what you're doing. So that's awesome.
Likewise, in spades, once I learned, it's like, oh, he's got a podcast? And I've been asking you for over a year to come on my podcast, but I know you've been busy with other things. And it's like, well, now he's going to want to plug that. So yes, I've been wanting to bring you on. And as you talk about your story, I will mention more about how your life and your battle and your healing has informed and inspired my own journey.
Yeah.
And yeah, so please continue.
Favorite food memory. Man, I have so many food memories. I don't know where to begin with that one. Let's just say I don't think I have a specific favorite food memory other than what I really enjoy is our seafood that we have. I live in Alaska, so I have access to lots of fresh fish. So every summer,
lots and lots. I mean, what's the biggest size fish that you've caught, and what kind was it?
Oh my goodness, my biggest would be a halibut, and I think it was like 50 pounds. Not too impressive because they can get in the hundreds of pounds.
Yes, but for down here in the lower 48, 50 pounds is a big fish.
Right.
So yeah,
king salmon is something that's another big fish. But really, I enjoy the silver salmon is my favorite. So I do like that. We have crab. I actually love rockfish. Is just a really good. It's the thing that we love in Alaska. But yeah, I'm really blessed to. I guess I like to say I drew the lottery when I was born in this state, because people save a lifetime to come here and see what there is to see, and I get to have it every day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've got relatives in Alaska, never had the opportunity to visit. It is a bucket list thing. So one of these days I might come knocking on your door.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So anything special? Why salmon? Is that something like you had as a child, or?
Salmon, well, actually, I grew up with a lot of salmon, so there became a period where I was like, ugh, salmon for dinner. It was just like, ugh. And so, yeah, childhood, I really don't have much memory of food, I suppose, that really just stands out. Yeah, salmon wasn't a favorite when I was a kid, but it became a favorite later in life. I think catching my own fish made it a different experience. And I really don't like my salmon fancy. What I do is I'll take a fillet, which I'm going to have some salmon tomorrow night. I was actually thinking about it tonight, but I didn't take any out to thaw. I take a fillet. I let it come up to room temperature. While it's coming up to room temperature, I have some sea salt on there and some pepper, and I let it rest. Then I pan sear it on each side, finish it off in the oven. So all told, it's about 9 minutes for a fillet, and that's just as quick as a microwavable meal. So
Right.
I'm really uh, that's just how I like it. It's really fresh. And
Nice, nice. So, what is your favorite childhood memory?
my favorite childhood memory, I have quite a few, but I would say I really enjoyed fishing for trout. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, walk to the lake, which is about a couple miles away, which is something like when you think about that. Well, I'm a child of the 80s, so we were really
Right,
left to our own devices. So I just
right.
go. So I would wake up just in time to when it was legal to drop my hook. I was watching my clock and sink my hook at that time. So those are really fond childhood memories. The woods have always been a place of safety for me. Something I sought out as we talk later and about things that happened to me. I had in my neighborhood a tree that I went to often. In another area I would bike to, and it was just this great forest around this lake. And I actually live closer to this forest now. It's just down the road, and I walk through there, and so I get a chance to reconnect with the younger part of myself
Oh, yeah.
and experience that safety that I felt that it brought me when I was a kid.
Is that why you decided to live where you were at now, because it was so close, or that just added to the positives of that particular home?
So one would think that you would move further away from where, because the church is, I have to drive by it. Now, years of therapy, that place doesn't really hold the power that it did over me. So I'm really living in the same area that I grew up in, same part of town. Uh, yeah. So and one of the reasons for that was also because my sister wanted. She says she moved down into this neighborhood, the subdivision I live in, and said mom and dad are going to be getting older and the grandkids being closer, and she basically guilt tripped me into moving down into this neighborhood. So it was a win-win.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I did the opposite. Moved. I'm from Oregon and I'm East Coast now. Been here over 35, close to 40 years.
You went you went as far as you could, I
Yep.
believe.
Yep. Absolutely. And got healthy. It's what I needed to do for my own health, and not even knowing, because I had blocked so much of my history out, but definitely I needed to get out of Dodge. But Oregon, still home, and I still go visit occasionally, and it still feels like home. My positive safe spots, and I will go visit all my lovely safe spots growing up, including the beach. Love the beach. Still love the beach here, but North Carolina beach, Oregon beach, night and day, very, very different, but
I
love
forgot that you
both.
were
Yeah.
in Oregon, and I go to Oregon quite a bit,
Yeah.
and I can't
Yeah.
believe I have not reached out to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm never there. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you ever get East Coast, then
Oh,
definitely.
you're East Coast. Yeah. Okay. I'm
Yeah. I grew
sorry.
up in
I
Oregon.
got
I'm not there
turned around.
now. Yeah.
Yes,
But I'm in North
that's
Carolina
right.
now.
That's
Yeah.
right. I got my
Yeah.
head turned around.
Yeah.
More
That's
coffee.
okay. Yeah. There we go. There we go. So, what is your favorite scripture or any inspirational quote that has helped you on your spiritual journey? And what about it speaks to you?
I'm going to go with my favorite quote, which is by Rene Dumas. This has been since my younger days, I think my 20s, it goes back. And it's by Rene Dumas. And it says, "You cannot stay on the summit forever. you have to come down again. So why bother in the first place? Just this: what is above knows what is below, but what is below does not know what is above. One climbs, one sees. One descends, one sees no longer, but one has seen. There is an art of conducting oneself in the lower regions by the memory of what one saw higher up. When one can no longer see, one can at least still know. And he was a French climber. I did a lot of mountaineering when I was younger, hence the bad knuckles and knees.
But you have lots of mountains there to climb and to, deal with and
Right.
enjoy for sure.
But
Yes.
I reference mountaineering quite a bit in my healing journey because there are peaks and valleys, and there's a lot of times we have to push a little harder to make it to the summit. And sometimes the summit's not possible, so we have to turn around and go back down. But we're because we're able to do that, we can always survive to try it again. Yeah. So sorry, that part of mountaineering. So I think the mountains and nature have really been my church throughout life.
Absolutely. Great way to commune with God out in nature. And I've always loved nature growing up in Oregon, lots of nature. And
Sure.
I did camping. I was camp counselor for different things and loved telling the kids about all the plants and animals and what you do and what you don't do and how to respect nature and so forth. Always thoroughly enjoyed that kind of thing. So, what is your favorite church or house of worship memory?
Oh, well, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
The thing that I remember that I hold on to is I grew up Catholic, um, and and there is a cadence to Mass, and there is and smells like all, I don't know what it is, but every Catholic church smells the same. Doesn't matter where you go.
Right. It's whether it's the incense. My wife grew up Catholic, and all kinds of extended family weddings, funerals, and so forth. Always at the Catholic Church, usually up in D.C. area where she's from. And yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. It's like that same smell. Yeah.
And I want to say I think it too is like the holy water by the
Oh yeah.
entryway when it permeates a smell, but I think it's not because of the holy water, it's because everybody's fingers have been in it. Probably. I don't know. I really was proud of myself for becoming an altar boy. I
Yeah.
thought I really believed that I was like one step away from being father, and I was just right on that precipice. In reality, right, not. But as a kid, making it to that point,
Right.
and yeah, so those are fond memories.
Absolutely. Now, from there, I know a lot of your abuse history happened with the church and so forth, and then your battles, including just recently overcoming, dealing with all this. Would love to hear more about your story. As much as you'd like to tell about the abuse history, how you have dealt with it, and the repercussions of that, including legal system, and then from there, I would love to know more about your healing journey, what things you have done that have worked for you, what things that have you tried that not so much, didn't really help much, or worked for a little while and then no, it kind of stopped working, so I stopped doing that. And then from there, would love to learn more about Mighty AK and all the other wonderful things you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, you'll have to probably go through that list again. I'm nearing 60, so I'm learning that a lot of things in the moment don't stick in my head.
Oh
But
yeah, 61. I hear you. Yep,
yeah.
absolutely.
So when I was a kid, like I said, child of the 80s, we were left to roam
Yes,
and do our
we were
things.
we were feral. Yes.
Yes, we were feral. Those I love those Gen X videos.
Yes, yes. John Contreras. Have you heard him? He's actually here in North Carolina. He's one of those
Okay,
Gen X video
I'm not
guys.
familiar with names, but it's in
Yeah,
my scrolling
yeah.
algorithm
I
with
met him
him.
in
So,
person recently. He came to a Comic Con type convention locally, and
oh,
he's
is he?
from Charlotte.
Yeah.
I guess Gen X thing, and yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
that he sounds familiar. Yes.
yeah,
Comedian.
yeah. He's a big one. I met him in person and got a hug from him, and we were like
That's
chasing each
great.
other all over the venue, trying to find him. Even though I'm like borderline Gen X, because yeah, I was 64. It was when I was born, and officially Boomer, but it's like I think they call us Generation Jones because we're like tail end of Boomers and not quite Gen X. But yeah,
Generation Gen.
everything. Yeah, I think because the idea that trying to keep up with the Joneses, and that was big with our particular, always trying to one up each other or something. I don't know.
Right, right.
Uh, yeah, that same kind of thing. Yeah, you stay outside until the street lights come on, and then you better be in. And yeah, we ran around the neighborhood. No electronics really until we
No.
got older, and didn't have cable TV, just a couple of channels.
Yeah.
That was it. It's
Yeah.
like go outside.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially summers. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. So with that, yes, when I found I had a really good circle of friends, and there's still a lot around that time where I feel like as I talk to other people, especially I think when I first came out with my story on social media, a childhood friend of mine in the neighborhood who also experienced abuse in our neighborhood had said that she always wondered, and that is not something that should normally feel good, but I felt so validated by that comment because I really was struggling. I had a pretty good childhood. I was all over the place. My mom says she wouldn't raise me if you paid her $1 million. But my abuse started before I realized that it was abuse. I still have a hard time with the acknowledgement that things started much younger. I was probably 7 with CCD, which is the
Like
study of the catechism. And
catechism classes, right?
yeah, yeah.
My wife had
And
told me all about it. Yes.
yep, yep. So, and I mean, for people watching, they don't know, CCD is it's like Sunday school, sort of. We're learning about the teachings of Christ, his work, the church, the rules, the commandments, and all the things. What I acknowledge now, which is hard, is that there was abuse going on during that time. I thought that it was friendship that we had. I thought I was really close to him, and that's the grooming part, right? It's enmeshment, because my faith is interwoven with this person who is a man of God. He has a direct line, this as you see it. And as years went on, became an altar boy. I would ride up to church on my bike, got a bicycle, and that I made myself out of parts from garage sales, saved enough for, I don't know if you remember those BMX bikes, I think it was a Huffy or something like that, and it had the mags. You remember the big plastic spokes,
Right.
and so I found this freedom, and I could go. I remember riding as far as I could, and I remembered how to get to church. And so I would go up there. Father would invite me to come up, and I would help with cleaning, straightening up the pews. And a lot of that stuff was normal. We'd hang out. I got to go to the rectory a few times, quite a few times. He would show me his photo albums. We'd sit on the couch. We would visit. He would give me popsicles and stuff like that. And one day we were sitting on the couch and we're looking at this photo album. He's a cool guy in my eyes at that time. There was a book tucked between us. We were sitting close to each other, and it had pictures of an adult man, a young guy. And that was when things just turned. And I'm not going to go into the details of
Right.
all that.
So the book, was this like porn, softcore porn, or just
I really don't know. It had some drawings. It wasn't like pictures, but it was like drawings of that stuff,
okay?
those
So
relations.
very sexual or just subtle or less than
There
subtle?
was, yeah, some sexual stuff.
Okay.
The cover of the book is really what's burned in my head, but I have no idea. It sounds ridiculous, but chicken sticks out in my head. Um, I'm not even sure why, but it was this adult man with this young boy, and inside there were some others, and it was just there. It was face up, so the pages were kind of open, and
Right. That's very common with people, with men who are grooming boys to have pornography. Oops, I didn't mean for you to see that. Oh goodness.
yeah,
Oh, but now
right,
that you do, what do you think about that? Yeah, they'll like oops or just expose that. It's like taking down the barriers brick by brick, getting you more and more comfortable with sexuality, nudity, normalizing these things. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But story after story, yeah, it's like, well, let's see how far we can warm you up
yeah.
and get you into that, yeah, ideology of, hey, yes, men and boys can
Grooming.
have
There
this
was more
special
grooming.
relationship, exactly, and
Yeah,
normalizing it. And the whole goal is so the boy doesn't even realize that what we're leading to is bad or abuse. It's just a special relationship. But then building that up, long con, basically. It's like, oops,
yeah.
oh, I didn't mean for you to see that. Oh, goodness.
Right,
Yes, of
right.
course, it was there. He wanted you to see it. That was part of the grooming.
That's
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't say anything about it that I recall right now, but it started like the abuse, and I really think I was like in his first time crossing that line just by how he was, and he seemed like he was just as terrified as I was. I don't have a lot of very clear memories. I mean, I have some memories, but for the most part, there was dissociation, out of body experiences. I have tried to figure out like what is it that causes somebody. This is the complexities of the abuse, right? Did we have this really close relationship?
Right.
Was it genuine? Well, sure, kisses on the neck and kisses on the face and patting when I was younger, these things that seemed very parent-like, that I was getting from him something that I needed. And so it felt very, very connected. Then something shifted. Maybe he was always that way. Maybe he waited years to cross that line. Maybe he waited until I was at an age where he felt like, so I'll never know these answers. When we get to the justice part of this, I did find him. He was alive. All I wanted was to sit across from him, one, to see that I was still alive, and two, ask why me. And that is probably that I've learned that's not a great question to ask, the why. Most likely not going to get it, but it can't
Yeah.
hurt asking, and maybe I would have made space for him to open up. On the other end of that, I also imagined the police out the door
Right.
and waiting there for him afterwards.
And of course, the answer, you were there. If it wasn't you, it would have been another boy. You were there,
Right.
you were available. And so you became a target. Whatever he
Yeah.
saw in you that made him feel like you would be an easy mark.
Yeah. And there were others. There were
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Which I would learn during the justice process.
Right.
He said one day in the foyer, I remember him looking at my mom and dad and saying he's retiring, and he didn't look at me. At that point, we had several encounters, abuse that happened. He didn't look at me when he was talking to other people or my parents, and I felt like it wasn't the normal thing. He didn't, God, just that, like when I had hair, he rubbed the top of my head, and those kind of things really mattered to me. And come to find out that he didn't retire. I found this out during the justice process. He was actually transferred. I think every 5 years or something like that, they would transfer a priest, or 10 years or something like that. They'd transfer him to another parish. So that's indeed what happened. There was an incident while he was our priest. There was several masses where he was out on an injury, and we had, then it would have been Father Murphy, and then he became a Monsignor, still called him Father Murphy. He had, I laugh because this, I shouldn't probably laugh, but I was in the sacristy. We were getting ready for mass, and another altar boy and I were in there and getting the wine ready. And there was like this cabinet full of like what I know today to be very cheap table wine. Um, and my friend, he said, "I dare you to drink some." And I was like, "Okay." And so, I mean, there was some deliberate, some debating, but I went for it, and drank some of the wine. My second sip of doing that, Murphy walks in the door, and he immediately excused the other altar boy. He came at me and um, put hands on me and said, basically, I'm going to have to tell the deacon, I'm going to have to tell Father, your parents are going to be embarrassed. You'll no longer be an altar boy. I mean, all of these things that happened, or all of these threats all at one time, scared the life out of me. I thought that my life in church was over. His hands on me caused me to freeze.
Normal response, yes.
And I felt like everything that I believed was true was pulled out from underneath me. And it was devastating. And that mass, we're up there and we have to pour water. So before the communion, Father breaks the bread. Well, we have to we pour holy water over his fingers and he rinses them off. He's got a little cloth.
Right.
I was pouring it. I don't know how I did this, but I completely missed his fingers. And up by the altar, it was carpet, so you could hear quiet church. You could hear the water like pouring on the floor. And I looked up at him and his eyes were just like looking through me. As I tell this, I still have a very terrified feeling about that. I remember him continuing to break the bread and doing communion. And I was thinking, I wonder if anybody in this room knows what happened before Mass, and that those hands that he's handing the sacrament over to people's tongues in their hands, that how could this be true? I just remember this. It was really almost an out of body feeling. And so the reason I share this part of that is because when Father Ali had left, he had transferred to another church. Murphy had he had transferred full time to our parish, and he continued where Father had left off and was.
You mean with you and abusing?
With me, yeah.
Now, going back to this, Murphy caught you drinking the wine. Did that lead immediately to him abusing you? Or if, like, negotiating, okay, if you don't want to get in trouble, you need to do XYZ? Did that happen?
He did actually when he made those threats. He says, "But we can work it out with something." And
Okay.
so when
And
he asked
on
me to,
this podcast, somebody else who was abused in the Catholic Church has shared the exact same story.
really, okay,
Yes, the exact same story. Not in Alaska, but that's MO. Chances are the kid who told you to drink the wine might have been under direction from Murphy to get to do that so he could catch you in the act. And probably that other kid was probably getting abused, and he was a recruiter. If I don't know if that rings true or if you ever put those things together, but
what's really interesting about that is I had just before I came to the church several years ago now, I had reached out to the other altar boy because he's a friend of my sister's, and we hadn't talked. We just like had a connection, and I reached out to him and I just said, "Hey, how's it going?" We exchanged some messages. The church came up. I said, "Probably haven't really hung out since we were altar boys." And then he got quiet, and then I heard from him, I don't know, couple months later, and he sent me a picture of him and his brother as altar boys, as I have of him and I as altar boys. I didn't hear from him after that, and then he vanished, completely deleted everything of himself online, anywhere. I didn't tell him anything about the abuse because I wanted to see if I just didn't want to upset him, but I also wanted to see if I was alone and just with that reconnection. But so I don't know where he is. I don't know if he has vanished. I really don't know. I hope that reaching out didn't cause something terrible as memories came back to me and I went through my own crisis. It's hard to say. There was one time with Murphy, I do believe that there was another kid there was one kid while we were being abused. He would have other men, another priest. I don't know who he is. I never saw him before, but when I came up to the church, there was a kid. There used to be a bike jump. So we'd ride across the property and jump off. And we always got in trouble for it, but yeah, it was like a good jump when you're a kid. You can't resist it.
Right.
But I saw this kid down at the bottom, and I thought, okay, this is my time to like show up. And so I was pedaling, and as I got just to the ramp, I saw this guy sitting outside the rectory that I hadn't seen. I hit the brakes and just kind of went over and then stopped. The kid that was there rode off. Murphy came outside. So this guy was like commenting on my bike, like, nice bike. I love the color. I like the pads on your gooseneck and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, this guy's cool. Then Murphy came outside and told me to get inside. And so we don't have to go there. But
so meaning he was wanted you to come in to do more stuff with you.
At another time, that same kid was there, inside. So I don't know. I don't know who this kid is. I don't know who this other man was. I think there was filming or photography. I don't know if the guy was. I really don't know, and I'm not even going to go there because it's memories I haven't processed and things I haven't gone into.
Yeah, production of CSAM, which used to be called child pornography, is very common in those situations because you can earn money and it's very lucrative to be able to do that.
He was busted for such.
Right. Yeah.
And later, and of course, what did they do? They transferred him out of state to avoid. He was under investigation. They moved him back to Boston.
Yeah. Yep, that's what the church does. It's like, let's protect the institution at all costs. And it's sad and so much wrong. Please
Yes.
continue.
Yeah, so I think I wasn't there when he left. I really don't know when I left. I really don't have. There's several years that I don't have any memory. I think I went offline when I was in eighth grade, and I think when I was a sophomore year, I think I was 16, so 14 to 16, I was offline. I don't have any
Meaning,
memory.
So you blocked out that time period.
Yeah, yep. And I thought I was actually much younger. So through the justice process, the evidence that I was providing, my story and everything like that, in my head, I saw myself as much younger, and I was telling this story, but the facts had me much older. The facts that we had. So I was 15 when it was done. And at the same time with Allie, it was my friend's dad had abused us at a sleepover. Yeah, this is actually really good. Let me just share this part because this is for anybody listening and wonder why boys don't speak up. My friend Patrick in our neighborhood, we were in the fort hanging out, and Patrick came out he had told us, he says, "Hey, my dad's doing this stuff to me and I don't like it." And I about said, that's what's happening with Father to me, right? I mean, I had to been like seconds because that moment seemed to like go in slow motion when he was sharing that. But it was like right when he finished, my friend Alex and Chris blurted out, "You must like it, or you'd make it stop." And it went on like that. And I remember like my throat just like,
right.
I was like, I almost said something, and then it was, I don't know how much longer after that, Patrick had begged me to stay the night at his house because his mom was out of town. And said his dad wouldn't do anything if I was there. And so I was like, I was apprehensive because I know what was happening to me, but I believed it. I thought, okay, there is two of us, right? There's two of us. And his dad was kind of cool. And I thought, okay. So my parents said, yeah. And
I know you think you are the only person in the world that this has ever happened to you. And they make it seem that way. Though I'm sure you might have, okay, we got other boys and other men, okay. And the book, it's like, okay, maybe not, but you still feel so isolated because no one shares this stuff. So, yeah, absolutely. Those are very normal feelings. And even facing it as adult, it's like, okay, there can't be that many men who've had to deal with it. And it's like, 1 in 6. Wow. And they think that's low. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not the only ones.
And I definitely know in my neighborhood, in retrospect now, I know that like my another Chris that was in the neighborhood, he tried to, we were camping out in the yard and he tried to make some moves on me. Of course, I didn't want anything to do with that.
Hmm.
And so I thought that now maybe something was happening with him.
Right.
And then Milo had the same, he did the same thing. And that time, my reaction was so triggered at that time. I beat him up really bad, and there went our friendship. But again, like retrospect, it's so Patrick's dad was probably making his rounds through the neighborhood,
Right.
but
And kids, when they act out with other kids, they don't necessarily understand that it's wrong or it's bad. It's just something that was taught to them. So it's like, hey, we can do that with you. And they don't necessarily understand the badness of it
right,
because, yeah, the child mind just doesn't get it. That's why it's so horrible. So, but it is very common for children to act out what they've learned through the abuse, not knowing it's wrong, and then as a result, often attempting to or successfully perpetrating with other children.
I think in the 80s, I don't know what was going on. I remember feeling at one time that this was normal, that this was just part of growing up. Yeah, I remember that thought. But yeah, I don't know what was going on during that time, in our history. But, I live in Alaska and we have always had the highest rates of child abuse and neglect. And we're six times the national average here, nearly,
Wow.
with just domestic violence, period. I think we're three times the national average. So when I think of those numbers now, and what I'm aware of, and public awareness, really, there's more awareness now, but it's still happening. And if it's still happening, it's always happened. And so it's really hard. I think it's normal. I don't know about you, but it's like, why? Why? It's hard not to feel like that it's your fault, that maybe I'm cursed or something. And one thing that I haven't processed that I kind of stand away from is when I was a little kid, we lived in this duplex. So I had been like in first grade, kindergarten,
Right.
had this dream, very vivid dream, that these angels came down and were picking me up off my bed. And I was looking at my bed going further away from me. I was getting closer to the ceiling. And I remember like begging and saying, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go. I want to stay. Like, I love my sister. I love my parents. And just begging. Then I went back down on my bed. I woke up back on my bed. I remember looking in my sister's crib, and I remember looking at my parents and like going out in the hallway into their room. And so when Murphy had me pinned in the sacristy, that was one of the first thoughts that came to my mind, that I'm being punished for not going.
Hmm.
Not going with God. And that's still like, there's a lot of adult logic in my head that
Right.
doesn't make sense, that wouldn't be true.
Right.
But it's also hard not to think that maybe
Right.
it's true.
And the child mind, how that develops, it's like, okay, your folks get divorced. What did I do? I must have caused it. It's the same thing with little kids that you play hide and seek. I'm going to hide under this blanket, but because I can't see you, that means you can't see me. It's that egocentric nature of our very concrete thinking mind at that age that, okay, something bad happened. It must be my fault
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you think at that age, even into teenage. Okay, I did something wrong. It's my fault,
Yeah,
And yeah, so self blame, very, very common. But no, it was not your fault. You were there.
that's
You
right.
were there. You were a target. Simple as
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I hope that anybody who has kids will lets them know that it's always safe to come to you as parents and really listen for and make space for things like that for a kid to come and talk, because not that I don't think it was my parents' fault for doing that. I just think like awareness at that time, and now we're aware and we have these stories that we share, and our
Right.
stories are there as our ancestors. It gets us to the next part of life. And so we can use these stories. And I've done that for my own kids. Like, I don't care what it is, you can tell me.
Right. And we've talked about this on the podcast before about disclosure and how to make sure your children know that you're safe to talk to. And one of the things, okay, bring up the idea of abuse. And when we talk about disclosure from someone who's been abused, we'll do it in like little tiny tidbits to test the waters, maybe bring up the subject. Yeah, I heard that such and such happened with that person over there. What do you think about that? Well, if that ever happened to one of my kids, I'm going to take that person and I'm going to take my rifle at whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're realizing, oh, so if I tell him he's going to kill this person, he's going to go to jail. And so that's all the support keeping us alive is going to be gone. All that worst case scenario playing out in their head is like, I'm not telling him a thing.
Right.
And so
or they might care for not what's happening to them, but they might love that person.
Right.
They might
exactly
care for that person.
That's what you need to do instead of doing this, making sure that they know whatever it is,
That's right.
We're safe to come talk to. We won't be mad. We want to keep you safe. Build those things up and check in. But if you're active parents, they go after the weak ones in the herd who don't have a strong relationship with their parents, single parent families, those kind of things. They'll look for that weak kid in the herd. So if you're a good parent and interactive with your child and have a strong home life support system, there's a lot less chance, not a zero chance, but a lot less chance that they will be targeted by these perpetrators because they've got the strong family life. All the stories that you see of perpetrators, male and female, they will go after no father figure, divorced, all those things that show weakness that I can easily manipulate this person into doing what I want them to do. And they know that's how you do it. You find someone who is easily manipulated and you manipulate them into doing what you want. And they are quite savvy at picking out, just like a lion, a herd of antelope. Okay, who's the weak one? Oh, there it is right there. Okay, that's my target. Ignoring all the rest, the other 50 antelope, going for that one. And yeah, they are adept at that, very much so. So it is not your fault. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No.
So what led you to the point of going after these individuals? And I know Catholic Church scandal has been huge the last decade. Tons of stories are coming out. A lot of survivors, mostly male, coming out, telling about the horror stories of what has happened, and then filing suit legally against the different dioceses, which is part of the formal church structure of all the local churches are under a diocese that is the governing body of that particular group.
That's
and
right.
Each Christian denomination, they're all structured governmentally similarly, but they call it different things and so forth. So, but you would go after the diocese because they would be in charge of hiring that person, looking after that person, supervising that person, who then did all these things. So what led you up to that point of wanting to, and what was the process? How did that go? My goodness.
Well, I think first what happened was, and how we came to know each other was through male survivors. So in 2019, I had a breakdown. The things that I did to cope for decades were no longer working. Like, it just didn't work.
Right.
And I had reached probably the worst. I've had suicide attempts before, and this was like going to be the most effective. I was really committed to that. And what had set that off is my neighbor, who's Catholic, would always invite me to mass, and I just always had an excuse why I wasn't going to go to St. Ben's, which is where my abuse happened. So but one day,
because again, you're in the same neighborhood you grew up on, so of course the local Catholic church would be that same church that all that bad stuff happened. Yeah,
that's right. And so, the same parish. And so one day I didn't have an excuse, and I just said, okay. And I remember walking back across the street to my house and thinking, what am I doing? Like, what am I thinking? And the whole time, so I thought, what, I can handle this. I can handle this. And so I went, and that didn't work out so well. I nearly stood up in the middle of mass and just yelled and said, "This is a lie," and just had like my meltdown right in front of everybody, but I didn't. Of course, I kept it inside the best I could and left when mass was over as quickly as possible. Came home, finished off a whole bottle of Jameson, and what followed after that was flashbacks and everything. It led me to my breakdown. When I was suicidal, I guess if you want to go with any divine intervention or something, a friend called me, and right in the middle of me writing a letter, really, I was looking for more of a paper trail. I'd sent something to the church, to the current priest. It has nothing to do with it, but I sent him an email. So if people wondered why, they would have that. And then I was writing a letter to family. And she called, and was out of character for the time of night. And in our conversation, we were trying to pretend that everything was all right. She asked me what was going on. And she too said that she knew. She knew. And so after that call, I reached out to Rain, because there's been periods in my life where I wanted to call or go to some support group, but it's all for women.
Right, exactly.
Everything is women language, and nothing absolutely wrong with that. It's great that we have those things in place, but it made me feel like there wasn't really anybody. I parked outside of a meeting for women who experienced rape or domestic violence, and I wanted to go in so bad because I needed help. And I couldn't, because I'd walk in the door, right? I'm the enemy. They'd probably throw chairs at me or something.
Right, right. And by the way, RAINN, RAINN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network links will be in the show notes. But yeah, they're
Yes,
a
very
great
good.
resource if you're trying to get help, especially you just want to start your healing process. They're
Yes.
a great place to call, and they have all kinds of resources. So,
And
absolutely.
they have resources local in people's areas.
Yes.
So they had connected me with STAR, which is an organization here in Alaska, Stand Together Against Rape, staralaska.com. So I reached out to them. I got their contact information. Also, Rain gave me Male Survivor, malesurvivor.org. And uh, I wasn't ready for that right away. I was really apprehensive. I lurked for a while to see like what that space looked like, but I reached out to Star because I really was at a fork in the road. It's either going to make it or I wasn't going to make it. And Star was very receptive. And this is going to sound really strange, but when I went up to their door in their building, they have this like locked entryway. So you go in through this door and you go through another door. And I have to say, just that locked door thing, when it closed behind me, I actually felt like I'm safe. There was a hint of safety there.
Right.
And no, whatever I was going to say, those guys in my life who had threatened me and my abuse, they couldn't get me. And
Wow.
so when I went through that intake process to get support, they offered me counseling just to get me regulated. That counseling opened doors for me to find a therapist that I could work with outside of that organization. And Star, during my legal process, was there in my defense when the defense attorney for the church was requesting my intake information, which they're not privy to. My attorney, however, thought that that would only help my case. And so I said, it's okay to release it. They really tried to discourage that because they didn't want to set this tone that's something that they're willing to do. So I talked with the director of Star and just told her it's going to help. And so I really appreciated their advocacy. But before that, while I was receiving therapy, I had reached out to the church a second time because Facebook and their algorithms, gotta love them, ended
Yeah.
up one morning having a live stream of mass. So this is like
Mm.
2021, I think, or something like that. 22, I can't be sure.
Right.
COVID time when they were still like live streaming mass.
Right.
There was the current priest that's there was talking about his guardian angel and
Right.
angels and just triggered me to know, like, I went through the roof. I was so like upset by that because I was like, where was my guardian angel?
Yeah.
Where was God in his own house? And so I fired off a drunk email later and I let him have it. How could you sleep in the rectory under the same roof of what happened? How can you stand up there? Where was my guardian angel? I just went on and on. I can't remember everything that's in that email, but I just blurted it out. Well, he responded very kindly and he said that he was aware of what happened. He asked me if that was me 3 months ago, I think at the time or something like that, that reached out to him anonymously and shared. And I said, no. Remember the other guy that I spoke to in that same time frame, that other altar boy? I want to believe that that was him. Some overlap there, but he says, unfortunately, I have to report this to the diocese. I'm going to bring in the victim care coordinator. So they have somebody for this role, a victim care coordinator. I'll talk about her in a minute, but anyway, that's how things started.
Yes. Similarly, once I know that you and another person, a male survivor, you're both battling Catholic Church, and we talked about this at length there, that inspired my own journey because when I was 20, sexually assaulted by a Methodist minister. This would be in the 80s.
That's right.
Confronted at the time, but it was just swept under the rug. But I just wanted to follow up to see, okay, what's going on. And that opened up the doors to my own story. And yeah, we have the nationwide victim care coordinator type person who dealt with all of these things that were coming out because it was Me Too movement, all this stuff coming out around that same time. So it was just before COVID hit. That was huge. That's what everyone was talking about. And anyone who experienced it, I need to start dealing with this stuff. It just brings it all out. And yeah, then they connect me to the local person and then their care coordinator person for that. And yeah, it wasn't helpful. And yeah, I can see how you're phrasing these words, how unhelpful it sounds like it was for you. Yeah, but the fact that I got inspiration from you, Scott, to open up that door in my own past. You were my hero, still are. I'm so proud of you. But the fact that you were willing to go there and fight inspired me to battle this. And I got as far as I could with their program for victims and realized, okay, I'm just going to wait for the class action lawsuit that eventually will come, like they all are coming. And yeah, I've got all my stuff ready to go and documented everything. And when it gets to that point, it's like, okay, here we go. So yeah, I'm just done with it. And yeah, until they're ready to move forward against the whole church. So yeah, but I was so proud of you and I saw how much you fought during that time. So many legal hurdles you had to overcome. So continue, please. So this care coordinator person.
Yeah, so first thank you for sharing that, and I appreciate it. It is not a kind process for anybody. Statistically in our state anyway, it's only 20% of victims ever pursue justice because the justice process is designed to be not kind. They really don't want victims coming from a place of strength.
Right. Small percent come forward, then an even smaller percent get into the court where the DA will even consider the case because of evidence or whatever. And then out of those, very small percent actually will find guilty verdicts. And then out of all of those, very small percentage will actually see any jail time. So it's a drop in the bucket of a huge ocean of horribleness. And so it's important if you have the moxie to do it, to seek justice, so people in power can realize this goes on and it's really bad. Yeah, it's very much an uphill battle. Very, very much. Yeah, it is not designed, sadly, for the victim.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. Please continue.
Yeah, so you're right.
And this concludes part 1 of my interview with Scott Slone. Be here next week for the conclusion. you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Live Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarliveconsulting.com. That is Polar spelled Polar. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.